Can I ask you a question? What do you think was so threatening about dreaming then that is not there now?
Good question. What was so threatening then that's not there now? I think finances was a big one. I felt like I was doing everything that I could. It was the messaging. It wasn't even the finances. It was the messaging. I was perceiving. It's what I was perceiving. What I was perceiving was that you weren't content in your life.
You are listening to the Famous at Home podcast with Dr. Josh and Christi Straub.
Because when it's all said and done, we all want to know that we were famous at home.
Welcome back to the Famous at Home podcast. Today, we're talking about dreaming. Dream.
You missed out on a career there.
I certainly did not. Dreaming together. I remember, so I got to tell you this. This is actually a funny way to start. I remember driving, I'm trying to remember exactly how this went. It was basically like Christi would want to go look in like these nice neighborhoods and look at houses and look at beautiful things. And I would always reject her. And I'd be like, I don't want to do that. And it wasn't that I was blatantly doing that, but you know how like you send off an aura about you, like you send off vibes that are not helpful when your spouse is when your spouse is excited about something and you're not, it's like dead weight. And that's what it was like. And I'll never forget Christi, because in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, like Christi, there's no way we can afford these houses. There's no way we can afford to live in this neighborhood. I don't know why we're driving through it. It's a waste of our time. Paul says to be content in all things. Let's be content in the house that we actually have. And like, if she could just become more holy, then we wouldn't have to worry about this and we wouldn't be driving around all these neighborhoods. And I'll never forget the day that Christi said to me, she's like, Josh, it's not that I want these things. It's that I want you to dream with me. And I was like, okay, time to drop to my knees and repent, because I do not dream with her, or I did not dream with her. Shoot, now we're dreaming like crazy. But we are and we aren't. Like I think we are. Well, we are in the sense that, we sold our house, we're getting an RV, we're going to travel, we're building an outpost in Tennessee, we're doing all these fun things. We're
living in 1,000 square feet.
Yeah, spending time in 1,000 square feet cabin when we're not traveling right now. Like, it's like this, but there's purpose behind all of that. There's like this grand purpose that I'm super stoked about as we get out onto the road and as we do biblical hospitality. And I think the vision and the dreaming is going to only increase and only get bigger. And the reason we wanted to do this topic, sorry, I'm going to toss it to you in a second. The reason I wanted to do this topic was this, because so many people come up to me and us, I say me because it's me when I'm on the road, but us, and go, man, I wish we could do what you're doing. Yeah. Or man, that would be so cool to do what you're doing. And the reality is, I think a lot of people could do what we're doing. It just takes a mindset shift. But it takes dreaming. And my whole point is, I believe that you don't have to do what we're doing. Like, that's not the point. The point is, I think God has given all of us dreams. He gives all of us desires. He gives all of us the ability to enlarge our territory. I don't know if you remember the prayer of Jabez, right? Like, expand my territory, enlarge my territory. Like, the whole idea of enlarging and expanding so that we can build for the kingdom of God. To me, that's what dreaming is about. That's what this step is about for us. We have no clue what it's going to look like or what God's doing in it. We're just trying to be obedient. We're trying to take the next faith step. But the whole point of that is you have dreams within you that are untapped. And your family, your kids need you to be dreaming. And I just want to tap in, I hope, through this podcast episode, because I think people need to dream. I think what this world is lacking is seeing other families taking leaps of faith, but dreaming. And leaps of faith doesn't mean, again, selling your house or doing all these crazy things. Dreaming could look like dreaming could be putting the garden in your backyard that you have been dreaming about for years and just haven't done yet, and just start with one garden box. Dreaming could be, that you guys go and you're, to a destination that you've not gone to before as a family. Dreaming could be that you invite your in-laws or your parents on a vacation trip and do a multi-generational trip that you've been wanting to do. Dreaming it doesn't mean you make these drastic life changes, but I think that there's some things maybe going on within your heart and in your soul that I think for all of us, that we haven't tapped into for whatever reason. And that's what we want to talk about.
Can I ask you a question? What do you think was so threatening about dreaming then that is not there now?
Good question. What was so threatening then that's not there now? I think finances was a big one. I felt like I was doing everything that I could. It was the messaging. It wasn't even the finances. It was the messaging. It's what I was perceiving. What I was perceiving was that you weren't content in your life. And so therefore you weren't content with, and I was working so hard. I think this is what I was talking about last week, where it was like men, a lot of times, like what we do is we feel like we're crushing it because, in every area, like I felt like I was doing everything I possibly could. And yet here Christi is not content with the life that we have, the house we're living in. So therefore she wants to go bigger and go, and it's like, I felt so much pressure. I felt like I had to be it was all on my shoulders to get her this house or live in this neighborhood or to have that pool or whatever it was. It was like, I felt the pressure. And I think we all feel that pressure in the American dream world that we live in. But I felt that pressure, which is why I didn't want to dream, was because I had no idea how to ever get to what that was that I thought that maybe you wanted.
That, and the reason I asked that, because it's a
great question.
It's not really different now, right? It's like there is still and if you want to call it lack of contentment, there's still dreaming requires you to see vision forward that's different than your current and desire for that. So you can call that discontent, or you can call it vision, or as we're calling it today, dreaming. But the reason I wanted to get to the bottom of that, because I genuinely was curious, like, what has shifted? You've changed. And I want to say, like, because what you just said at the end there is basically the belief, I don't have what it takes. And so if you're listening to this and you're listening to an episode about dreaming, and you're like, maybe you've come to it because you're like, I haven't even considered dreaming. Like, dreaming is the furthest thing from my mind. So I'm curious, like, what they're talking about. Something about it is so novel that it's like, I'm going to listen to that. Or you're here because you're a dreamer. But for those that resonate with what Josh just said, it's probably because you're in a state of shutdown.
But I think it's not just where I feel like it's that I don't have what it takes. I also think exhaustion,
which is
being overstressed,
which is what I'm saying though. But that's what that state means. I don't have what it takes. Like, I literally don't. It's not even that you don't think you're gifted enough. It's that I don't have the capacity right now to do that. And your body knows what the story is true. Like, literally, it does not have the reserves in order to do. It doesn't have the energy. It doesn't have the boundary. It does not have enough capacity. And so for those listening that are in that place, like, I just want you to honor where you are, because that means you're really tired. Like, you've been working so hard to maintain whatever it is now. So to even have the energy to look ahead or dream, like, that will require you having time to heal and rest. And for those that are dreamers, like that you're in like vision mode, you're ready to go. Like it's like a horse at the gate. Like, and you have to be careful there too, because sometimes that is this almost like this drive for something because you're running from something or you're wanting to get away from something. And so to just be curious of like how you're approaching dreaming, because it can come, we can make it look like pie in the sky, like it's like all roses and cute puppies. But like there are things with that sort of undergird even our just like for you, like that conversation was so triggering. It did not go well for us. And so we felt it in our marriage, and maybe you two too. Like I often find it's like a dreamer and oh my gosh, what is it? Nate Bargatze. Is that a joke that he does?
I don't know.
It's something like, oh no, he does savers and spenders, but he's like, it's like a spender and I'm obviously going to ruin the joke, but he basically makes it like those that like, you know, want to spend all the money and like live this fun life, and those that want to kill every bit of fun, and they find each other and marry each other. But you should watch it.
That's exactly right, because
that's it.
That's what's going on here.
Yeah.
And you could very well be in a marriage where one of you wants to run ahead and the other wants to retreat.
So what do you do?
And so I think it's important to realize that even what you see, there's a Bible verse, I think it's in Zephaniah, where it says, do not despise the day of small beginnings. I think it's Zephaniah. Don't quote me on that, but I think it is. Do not despise the day of small beginnings. And in other words, what I like to say is don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle. And so what you see us doing right now and where we are has been years of healing. It's been years of prayer. I think that's the key one, is prayer. God is not going to tell a husband one thing and a wife another. He's not going to split the marriage. He's not going to be a God of confusion. He's going to unite you. There's going to be a unity in your marriage when you're praying into it. And so whatever the dream is, I think the single best thing that you can do is to just write it on a piece of paper, share it with one another, tuck it under your pillow, and dream and pray about it. Dream about it. Yeah, you can actually literally dream about it if it's under your pillow. But like, pray about it. Pray through it. And then come together after a week and go, what do you experience? What do you think God's speaking to you about this? Maybe nothing. Maybe you don't feel anything. Do another week. Do another month. We prayed for years about where we are. Years ago, we were looking at fifth wheels. Years ago, we've been looking at land. This is not a new thing for us. This has been God's timing. It's been God's healing in my own heart and in my own life. Because even now, as we start to think about building an outpost, as we start to think about RVing, as we start to think about all these things, there's financial stuff involved in that I'm like, ugh, I don't even want to start thinking about that. But at the same time, it's like, no, if God has called us to it and he's prepared our hearts for it and we've prayed into it, then he's got a plan for it. And that's where I just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And it's the same thing for all of us. Whatever that dream is, share it with one another, bring it out into the light, and don't just sleep on it at night. Because sleeping on it at night by yourself and not bringing it out into the light is where we just lay in bed at night and we go, I just wish. I just wish. And then we start lamenting that our lives are not the way that we want them to be. And the reality is taking the first step to that dream is to verbalize it with each other, put it out loud. And if you really want to, or you feel like you can do this without getting your kids excited about something that isn't going to happen, but you feel like you can invite them into this to pray into something, invite them in to pray into it too. Because them coming along for a journey like this on dreaming and seeing God come into fruition on something is just beautiful. It's radical. I have a buddy who lived at a house in Tennessee. They were living in a house in Tennessee, and they wanted the 4 or 5 acres next to them. And they were literally praying with their kids, Lord, give us that land, give us that land, give us that land. and a for sale sign goes up on that land the day after they started praying. And they were all like, this is amazing. This is amazing. And I can't exactly remember the story or what all the details were, but something happened where somebody else swept in and bought that land. Mm-hmm. And I think it was too expensive or something. It was out of their price range. Someone who came in and just completely bought it out from under them. And he's like, okay, kids, like that, clearly that wasn't, we thought that might've been God, but it wasn't God. And it was only, I don't know, weeks or months later that they kept praying into this, and they got an even nicer piece of land and a nicer place after that now they have a testimony for their kids that they didn't have before. And to me, that's the beauty of this, inviting your kids into it is, I mean, how many times have we taken our kids through a roller coaster of like, we're dreaming about this. Oh, there's land. Oh, nope, never mind. There's not land. And now there's this and that. But yet they're seeing God come in, his faithfulness come through in so many different ways. And I think we do our kids a great service by not just dreaming ourselves as parents, but inviting them into that dreaming process.
Well, what comes to mind is like the definition of despair is really, it's a lack of hope. And I think that's what a lot of us feel, maybe in a lower grade way, but like as a culture, like this low grade despair, this just sort of, like it's not really going to get much better from here. Like this kind of is our lot in life. And I think that's where dreaming can feel almost offensive to people, because when you're in despair, it feels almost like a blinding, like a spotlight blinding in your eye when you've been stuck in the darkness for a long time. And so as you're talking, I'm realizing, yeah, there's some drama with it, right? There's ups and downs because you get your hopes up and then they're dashed. And do you remember early on in marriage, we talk about like, I was like this, like I'd get excited about something and then I'd just like crash and Josh was like, I don't do that anymore. I'm just kind of like this, because you'd had so many, opportunities and like they wouldn't pan out and, and so he'd learned to just be like this. And I thought,
this, like for people listening, like I'm just like,
oh, sorry. I'm laying the camera.
Even Steven.
Just like even, like I'm not going
to get too high and I'm not going to get too low.
Yeah. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that now?
I'm still I still function a lot that way. I mean, I get excited. I do get excited and I get low, but I try to keep in mind that the exciting things probably aren't as exciting as, in the end, as I want them to be, and the lows are never as low as I make them out to be. It's kind of like
there's a balance there for sure. I was curious because I know that comes with like, there's like a traumatization with that, right? Like,
but I also think there's emotional maturity that comes along with that.
That's what I'm saying. Like there's this balance between like youth that are just like passionate about this and and then they like come down off their thing, and versus people who've been through a lot of life and have been hurt and are like, I just refuse to get high or low, or maybe you can't. But there is this maturity where it's the willingness, I think, to hope, the willingness to dream, the willingness to imagine a life or whatever that is, a project, a vision, something that's different than the way it is right now, and to let your heart get a little caught up in that, because I think that's what living is. I think that's what love is. I think that's what truly being alive is. And we steal it from ourselves by just plodding away like slaves, really, that are just, expected to do things but have no agency, like no choice. And I think dreaming is because we have choices. Like God gives us free will. We have choice. We have agency over our lives. We can architect our own lives. And a lot of us feel like that agency's been taken away, I think. It's like, well, the kids are in school, or I can't get off work, or, it's like all these structures of life have hemmed us in. And I just want to even encourage you in that if you're feeling that lack of choice, it's not because it's been taken from you, it's because you've given it away. And I think the realization that we can choose is just the first gift we get. Like, you can still make the same choices, but just knowing you're the one making the choices, it's not being made for you. We have such agency to choose. And with dreaming, it's this ability to choose something better versus, I think the despair is just either settling for what is or believing that it's actually going to get worse. And I think there's a lot of people out there right now that are just feeling like it's only going to get worse. And culturally, politically, whatever,
things are going to get bonkers in this next year and a
biblically,
half.
we know it's going to get.
Yeah, but we're in an election cycle, and it's going to get absolutely stupid.
Okay, sure. And also,
it's just the reality. I mean, it's just look back every 4 years. It's like
look at history. I mean, we're not
totally,
like
100%.
It's not a whole lot different
hope.
than it was.
We were given hope as believers. Like, we're not given a spirit of despair. Like, or of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. Like, let's walk in that. Let's live in that. In spite of whatever the world's going to throw at us.
But the other thing I wanted to mention too about dreaming, which comes to me as I'm thinking of it, is dreaming is actually something that's really scary for a person because you've never experienced it before, and the nervous system doesn't like anything new. Like, the body's trying to protect you from everything hard and bad, and so anything new, even if it seems good, is a threat. And so visualizing what you're imagining or what you're dreaming is actually so powerful. It's not just like fluffy whatever, but actually visualizing what life would be like and how would how would the days go and what would that look like? Like, where would what would the floor be like? Where would your feet walk on? Where would you eat? Like, I'm thinking in terms of like a life change, but whatever that is for you. Actually,
but even if it's a vacation, even if it's your garden in the backyard, even if it's like whatever that might be, visualize yourself fulfilling and living in that dream.
Yes. And that actually will create neural pathways that will allow all of the resistance to that thing to start to dissipate, because when neurons fire together, they wire together. So you're literally rewiring your brain. You're rewiring your brain for hope. You're rewiring your brain out of the way life currently is into what life could possibly be. And you have to get it out of these ruts of despair or depression. And the way you can do that is by rewiring it to hope for something new. And once you actually keep sort of treading that path, that's why the Lord tells us to meditate. He tells us to think on what is good and excellent and praiseworthy and upright, because it actually rewires our brain and it allows us to move toward those things that are excellent and upright and praiseworthy. Yeah. We don't reject them out of our life. We're like drawn to them. They're a part of us. And we then start thinking those thoughts. We then start making decisions that way. And that's how you actually start to rewire the brain, but then repattern your life.
And the way that you rewire your brain, I mean, there's a confidence factor. I was just reading this weekend, a rookie quarterback in the NFL won his first game, and I was reading this article where he said, in his post-game interview, he said, I just visualized all week walking off the field having won the game, and I visualized what it was going to be like every day. I just visualized winning the game and what it was going to be like winning the game. Like, there was no other thing that he did. That was just what he did. He visualized winning the game, and he won the game. And it's like that. There's so much power in that. Yeah. And it's not this wooky, honky, like, these are very biblical things. Philippians 4, think on things that are pure, true, lovely, holy, excellent, praiseworthy, noble. Think on these things. Like, think on these things. What pushes away the ability to think on those things is worry. Because right before that verse, Paul says, do not worry about anything, but by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, with gratitude towards the God who loves us, who's good. Give thanks, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will keep your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers and sisters, and think on all these things. And so we've got to be going to him. We've got to be labeling, but taking the dreams, taking the fears, taking the worries, taking everything to him. He's there. He's present. Sometimes we don't feel it. we don't experience his presence, but he's always present. Even that verse says the Lord is near, be anxious for nothing. He's near. He is near you. Your ability to experience or feel him near you at all times varies and wanes based on how we're living our lives, but he is near. Mm-hmm. And so therefore be anxious for nothing, but think about all these things. It's such a beautiful phrase.
It's so beautiful. And it's so, I just think we all underestimate, you just said the word power, how powerful that really is. We were like, yeah. It's like, we know that, but it's like diet and exercise. Apparently it works. I don't know. We totally underestimate the power of that and I almost want to say the ease of it. It's like, I don't think it's quite as hard as we think it is. He's given us the blueprint, and to actually imagine, like when he says, like, fear not, like, do not fear. What we can't just turn off fear, but we can enter the presence of God and just revel in the beauty and the peace and like what is actually serene, like being in the presence of God, where we enter his presence and we feel what it would feel like. Imagine it, like walk those trails in your mind. What would it feel like to actually be in the presence of God? Like you step into the throne room. What would that feel like? Maybe he walks you beside a still water. Like Jesus walks with you beside a stream. What does that actually feel like? Go there in your mind. I think so often we're just like praying about our hard things. We keep bringing our hard things. Let him transform your mind by actually transforming your mind, not by bringing the same hard, gross, ugly parts of us. Like,
do not be conformed any longer to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12.
Yeah. And I think part of that is, we're lumping this all together, but dreaming is transforming a mind. It's moving from what is to what.
And here's what I would say to do. So to make this incredibly practical, do this. This week, when you have dinner with your family, with your kids, everybody have dinner together, or after dinner, dessert, sit down with a 3x5 card, 3x5 index card, piece of construction paper, whatever you've got, and a pencil. Give everyone a pencil. And have everybody write down, if you have young kids, have them draw it. Give them an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Draw out what it is they're dreaming about. Mm-hmm. What is you're dreaming of? What is it that you dream? It could be a trip to Italy, going to Paris. It could be a trip to Israel. It could be a massive trip. It could be whatever it is. I don't know. Whatever your kids are dreaming up.
Listen, I was super excited. I got a compost bin, and I got an indoor compost, like the little ones, and for your kitchen. And then I got my compost bin outside now. I've been dreaming about that for like weeks. I finally have it. It's thrilling. We walk our little bag out every day. It doesn't have to be big.
Your kids aren't dreaming about compost, but your compost bin. But your kids you might not know what your kids are dreaming about because you never asked them. Let's be honest, we don't typically do that.
And sometimes we've never given them permission to dream. So just by asking, you're giving them permission to do it.
And we're giving you permission to do it. Dream big. I
love hearing this coming from you. I just have to say,
need you to dream big. So what I would encourage you to do is go to the dinner table, have them draw it, you guys write it, and then have everybody share it, and then pray over them. Mm-hmm. Take a week and everybody pray over them. You could even pray every morning together. You could pray individually and apart together, but then come back to dinner the next week and start talking about them and see what God's doing with them. And is there one in particular that comes to the surface that your family, that you want to pray into as a family, that becomes reality? That's how I would make this a reality for you.
Love it.
Keep dreaming. That's how we're famous.
Or start dreaming.
Keep dreaming, start dreaming. Fulfill those dreams. Invite God into the dreams. And if you have dreams and you don't know how to interpret them, I don't know what to tell you right now.
That's not this kind of podcast right now.
Until next week, keep in mind that the greatest red carpet you will walk is through your front door.
Keep being famous at home. We love you.